On the line with us, Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Dent is from the 15th District of Pennsylvania, that's in the Lehigh Valley. And we asked him to join us today because he is at a meeting in New York City. This meeting is put on by an organization called No Labels. And I don't mean the labels on the back of your T-shirt. I mean no ideological labels, no conservatives, no liberals, no Democrats, no Republicans, no libertarians, no independents, no labels. There's a conference today called Make America Work. And really what this whole thing is about is trying to find common ground for Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, to work together to solve the problems that are facing the United States. And numero uno on everybody's mind is the fact that we have a $16.7 trillion debt that we can't seem to get under control or find any way to get out of it. Live from Manhattan, how are you, Congressman Dent?
Hey, John, thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be with you, and I think your lead-up pretty much says it all. That this country is facing enormous challenges, and I think you pointed out the biggest one of all. How do we put the country on a sustainable fiscal trajectory with over $16 trillion in debt? Everybody knows we're going to have to confront this challenge. The question is, does Washington, does Congress, does the President, do we have the capacity to deal with this challenge? And so what we're here to do today is to really talk about finding ways to help people build better relationships so they can build better trust amongst each other, so we can hopefully find consensus and common ground. We need a bit more pragmatism at times. Nobody here is really talking about people shedding their philosophies or their ideologies. There are people involved with this group who are conservative, liberal, and everything in between. But at the same time, we have problems to solve, and at some point, we're going to have to work together on this. And you need to build those relationships in order to do it.
One thing, Congressman, that many conservatives are suspect of. On our show is called Common Sense for the Commonwealth. We get a great representation of conservatives and liberals, Democrats and Republicans on our show week in and week out. And one of the things that conservatives and Republicans are very suspect of is that do Democrats really understand the fact that you cannot keep spending into oblivion? When you sit down and you talk to them like we do, it sounds like they understand that you cannot keep on spending money you don't have to the extent that we are. But then we can't ever seem to solve it. Why is that?
Well, I think, again, you have your finger on the issue. I think there are many Democrats, at least many of the Democrats up here in New York today, they understand that this is far more a spending problem than a revenue problem. I would also tell you, I do not think that the President of the United States at this point has been persuaded that he needs to deal with the drivers of our long-term debt. I don't think the President is there yet. We all understand there's going to need to be a major entitlement reform and probably a significant tax reform. And I think this is going to demand very strong presidential leadership. It's going to require strong leadership from Congress. And I think the leaders in the parties and the members are going to need some space to make these decisions. I don't think the American people are afraid of the solutions. I think they're afraid that their leaders don't have the capacity to arrive at a solution. But I agree with you. I think this is a far and away a spending problem. I think most sensible and serious Democrats know that, and as do most serious and sensible Republicans.
So in order to solve it, obviously we need, as you basically outline the major tenets, we need to reform the tax code, which everybody knows is antiquated. We need to cut spending because you cannot continue to spend to the extent that we are and never get this solved. And then you've got to grow the economy. When you look back to when we had a surplus under President Clinton, we were averaging about 5% economic growth. We're a long way from that, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And and I think, you've kind of pointed out the challenge. We have a jobs crisis, we have a debt crisis, and above all else, we have a leadership crisis. And I think this leadership deficit is the most significant of all because, we're not going to be able to solve the first two crises, jobs and debt, until we solve the third, the leadership crisis. And that's why I think we have to get people together who understand the problems. They come at it from different ideologies. But at the end of the day, the voters gave us divided government. And that means we're going to have to find a consensus. We're going to have to, figure out a way to come to an agreement. I think we can do this. Now, if I had my druthers, I think you'd use the Simpson-Bowles model at least as a starting point for some kind of broad fiscal agreement Although I'll tell you that plan, while it's got many admirable qualities to it, it's weak on health care, and Erskine Bowles would be the first to tell you that. So I think that's where we should be moving forward. Try to find something where we can get our arms around it, take the pieces of the best plans out there, and try to advance them in a bipartisan, pragmatic manner.
Now, one of the issues, Congressman Dent, is that when Republicans attempt to compromise in certain ways, then they have a fear immediately that they're going to get a primary challenge on the right. How is that affecting decision-making on the Hill in the Republican conference?
Well, I'd say to you that is certainly a consideration. There are certainly Republican members who are always concerned about a primary, and by the same token, there are Democrats who feel the same way now. I mean, if they start talking about entitlement changes, they have to watch their flanks.
Right.
And so, but at the same time, I'll tell you, as I go around my community, my district extends from Allentown, Bethlehem, from the Delaware River all the way to the Susquehanna. I have Hershey and 3 Mile Island in my district as well, and Fort Indian Town Gap, and wherever I go, people keep talking to me about why can't you guys get anything done? Why can't you guys work together? And I hear that from people who are conservative Republicans, liberal Democrats, everything in between. They know something's broken, and they want us to fix it. So I think there are a lot more people out there than we may tend to give them credit for who are genuinely concerned and want results. And I think they're prepared to give us some space. I think we have to have a change of attitude. It's the public, I think, sometimes sees us as Republicans and Democrats as each of us are in our own, embedded in our own, warring camp, and that there's not dialogue. The truth is, many of us do have some relationships with people on the other side of the aisle and are trying to develop them even further and expand them, because that's how we're going to get something done around here.
One of the great ideas you guys have come up with is a proposed 5-day work week here in the nation's capital, because really you're never really together for more than 2-3 days at a time.
Yeah, well, you know what? When I first arrived in Congress, we tended to have these sessions that were be in from Tuesday to Thursday most of the time, except in May and June and July, and you had longer session schedules. And that really wasn't effective because people come rolling in on Tuesday night. They have a full day of work, and they're going crazy all day Wednesday, just moving around from meeting to meeting. And then, then Thursday they're getting out of town, and that was not productive. I have to give Majority Leader Eric Cantor some credit here. Mm-hmm. He's done a better job with the schedule. He's tried to make it so that you're in Monday to Thursday one week, and then you're in Tuesday to Friday the next week, and then you have a week when you're out of Congress. So he's tried to lengthen the week, and I could certainly see why you would make it a 5-day week. I have no objections to that. Making it a 5-day week, 2 5-day weeks, and then a third week back in the district. You actually get more done that way. There's no question about it. That's my view of this. And that's true. Most members of Congress no longer live in Washington, D.C. They live in their home districts, so they do want to get home on the weekends to be with their families. But that's a shift. I mean, years ago, obviously, many more members of Congress did live in Washington, D.C. before we had these wonderful cross-continental transportation systems.
Right.
Congressman Dent, one more question for me before I hand you back to John. One of the ideas that was proposed is very key to what we've been talking about on the show not only this morning but will be tomorrow, and that is Vice President Biden's recommendations for gun control measures. One of the ideas that came out of the No Labels group was the fact that these quote-unquote backroom deals cannot save America, where you have a point person from the administration as opposed to a gathering across all points in the political spectrum, as you guys are doing today.
Right. Well, I don't know what the vice president is going to recommend, but whatever we do, I think we try to have we must arrive at a consensus. This firearm issue, as you know, is complicated. I've dealt with a number of issues over the years, and one thing I've noticed, our mental health system makes it very, very difficult to commit someone involuntarily. With all the privacy issues out there anymore, I have found that there are some seriously disturbed people out there who need to be committed and are not. And trying to get them committed is very difficult for members of the family, even for unemancipated children. It's very difficult. So, I mean, I think that's one area that I've focused on like a laser beam. And the other issue, too, I mean, some of these cultural issues. I mean, I hate to say it, but you turn on the TV at night anymore, and so many of us have become desensitized. You turn on the evening news, and it's, one horrific incident after another, and it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other sometimes. And I think we become somewhat desensitized, and then, consequently, we see these horrific crimes being committed, like up in Connecticut and and elsewhere. And it's we're all kind of grasping for answers. How do you stop it?
Congressman, speaking of stopping it, we've got another crisis coming up, which is we're going to go over the maximum that we can have in debt in the United States. That's coming up at the end of February. And what, of course, everybody is expecting, Congressman, is the same nonsense. Somebody comes in at the final hour, plays Johnny Appleseed, two staffs meet, and at midnight, they sign a deal and kick the can further down the road. Now, you voted in favor of the fiscal cliff bill on January 2nd.
Right.
What's going to change when we have to again re-up the national debt?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm fearful of another repeat performance or a Groundhog Day type situation where the public is just tired of Washington moving from one crisis to the next. Okay, it was the debt ceiling a year and a half ago. Now here we are at the fiscal cliff. There's going to be another continuing resolution fight. Debt ceiling, sequester, all these issues, and they want us to again do something much bigger. I hate to use the term a grand bargain anymore, but they want us to try to resolve this in a much longer term way so that we provide greater certainty. Look, nobody liked dealing with this fiscal cliff at the end of the year. I like the certainty on the tax rates. I would have extended the rates for everybody, but obviously that was not going to happen. The alternative was everybody was going to get a big tax increase, so we had to do something. But At the same time, I recognize that agreement did really not deal with the spending side of the situation. We all get it, and that we're going to have to do much, much more. Everybody knows that, and I think it's going to require very strong presidential leadership, which we have not yet had, at least on the spending side of this equation.
United States Congressman Charlie Dent. He's a Republican from the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. By the way, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
That is correct.
Now we just need somebody from Massachusetts, and we've got the Commonwealth trifecta.
Yeah, Commonwealth trifecta.
By the way, there is no difference between a Commonwealth and a state for all practical purposes. But
no, don't tell that to Virginians. You'll lose them immediately.
Well, it still sounds good. Here's my question, Congressman. There's been a lot of Republicans now jumping up and down over what happened on January 2nd, saying, this isn't going to go on again. You just kind of outline that, there'll probably be a final minute deal so we can continue with the drama. Here's my question. Do you think there's a majority of Republicans in your conference, if they cannot get real resolution to the financial problems we have, do you think they're prepared to shut down the government at the end of the month?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think most of us want to resolve the problem. We would rather not have to take this to the brink. And that's the other thing, too. I think the American public's not thrilled about all this brinksmanship they're seeing.
Right.
Is a nation going to default on its bills? Is the government going to shut down? I don't think that's where most people want to end up. It's a shame that we have to have this conversation in this country, that the only way we can get people to deal with these issues seriously is by threatening a government shutdown,
right,
or threatening not to pay the bills. It's truly regrettable. I think the greater point of leverage on the Republican side is really going to be with the sequester, because I think the President of the United States is going to have to seriously negotiate on that issue. He is the commander-in-chief. The defense cuts are significant. I know the President's deeply concerned about the across-the-board spending cuts on the non-defense discretionary programs, and so I think I think that issue will probably be the one that will force him to the table more than the debt ceiling, and more than the continuing resolution. That's just my sense, because there's a little bit more leverage for the Republicans on that score.
So what happens if President Obama simply says no again?
Well, then the sequester takes effect, and you'll see very significant cuts across the board, and there will be cuts in spending on the discretionary side. It
right.
still does not get us to the entitlement question, which we all know is going to have to happen. And unpleasant as that is, that discussion is, it's going to need to occur if we hope to leave our kids a better future, one of economic prosperity and opportunity. If we want them to have that kind of future, we're going to have to confront this, because this debt crisis is going to affect our capacity to create jobs. We all know it. And we can't separate the job problem from the debt problem. They're very much interrelated. And I think the American public intuitively knows that.
All right. On that final say, which we happen to agree with you, Congressman, 100%, we appreciate you joining us today live from the No Labels Make America Work Bipartisan Conference in Manhattan. Representative Charlie Dent, Republican from the Lehigh Valley in PA. Thanks for
John.
being with us, sir.
Thank you, John. All right, bye-bye.